The ethics
Yeah.
of Agile coaching. Thank you, Sophie. And yeah, let's explore it. But to start with, I'd like to get your point of view. So please go to menti.com and enter this code 4795483 and put one or two words. What does ethical mean to you? And we'll let this go for 3 minutes, and I'll pop up the word cloud that it produces. Interesting words coming up. Moral, respect, proper, professional, right, fair, humane, love that. Socially acceptable, human values, do the right thing, do no harm.
Hi, good question. We use on
Can't hear you properly, I think. Whoever's speaking, sorry, it's very difficult to hear you. Maybe you want to put something in the chat for us?
Parent, moral, 51, and we have a
I have 94 participants, so it's like
we'll give it another 30 seconds, and you can carry on putting this on. I mean, I will come back to it later, and we'll explore what we ended up with. I'd like to see whether what we talk about through our conversations, and it's going to be a number of conversations. What are these, how do they resonate with you? So coming back, thank you for that. My intent in this workshop is to cover, give it a little bit of groundwork, framework, start with ethics coaching, then we'll talk about the ethics of coaching. Then I want to go into Agile coaching, and then the ethics of Agile coaching and the work that we have been doing under that Agile Alliance initiative that Sophie mentioned. So that's the plan for the next 50, 55. Now, Sophie, I've got, how long are we going to?
So we're going to, that's what I was checking. We have an hour, I guess.
We have an hour left.
A bit more, an hour and 10 minutes, I guess. Something like that.
Wonderful. That's going to give us time to get deep into some of the topics. So what are some of the things that we have seen when it comes to ethics and ethical behavior? Here are some examples. I'm drawing predominantly from examples in the information technology or high-tech industry at the moment. Cambridge Analytica stands out. We're coming up to another round of elections all around the world, and Mark Zuckerberg tells us he's got it right this time, evidently, and there's all sorts of things in there that are going to prevent some of the behaviours that we saw. The scandal hit Australian banks, earmarking billions to repay customers. The Volkswagen emissions scandal, various not so great things. Or let's get a little bit closer. This is a website that has, I'm sure you've all seen them, be quick, there's only so many items left, or so many people are looking at it. And this particular one, the author in this article said, okay, really, what is the code that's behind this? Where is the live data coming from? And the live data was a math random function. So every 5 seconds, select the container displaying the number and generate a random number between 3 and 14, and then display that. Yeah, is that, never mind the truth in advertising, but just fundamentally, that's wrong. So what do we mean by ethics? A system of moral principles. They affect how people make decisions and lead their lives. Ethics very much concerned about what's good for individuals and society, could be considered a moral philosophy. This BBC website on ethics has got a really deep and good series of conversations and articles that if you want to explore this topic, I would encourage you, just in terms of ethics in general, to go and read up on that. How does that resonate? But let's go a little bit closer.
Oops.
Sorry, Sophie?
No. I just made the mistake in the chat. Please ignore. It was, I made a wrong copy and paste. I copied your private message, Shane, from earlier. But we'll need those links anyway later on.
We will need those links in a while, yes. So
I wanted to copy something else. sorry no, for the interruption.
No problem. So, and coming back to that there, well, this kind of feels that we're kind of aligning there, doesn't it? These are the statements that you as a group, 64 people, have said. These are the what ethical means. And if we look at, again, that definition, a system of moral principles, they affect how people make decisions, lead their lives. That feels to me like you've got a pretty solid understanding of this ethical thing. So that's good. It's nice to lay that as a foundation. But let's go further now. Let's talk about coaching and ethics in coaching. We've heard a lot this afternoon about coaching, and the ICF has been mentioned a number of times. This definition of coaching, in fact, brought it up right at the beginning of today. It's coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So that's the definition of the profession and the practice of professional coaching, without an agile adjective in front of it. But this is that engagement, and what C was talking about earlier, what Mike was talking about, both building strongly into that space. The ICF, when talking about coaching, also says there are some key competencies that people who practice in this profession need to have. The first one is meeting ethical guidelines and professional standards, establishing a coaching agreement, establishing trust and intimacy with the client, this concept of the coaching presence. Mike spoke about some of the meta skills from ORSC that would illustrate some of that presence. Active listening, powerful questioning. C gave us an example of that. Direct communication, creating awareness, designing actions, planning and goal setting, and managing progress and accountability. So these are things that the competencies that somebody acting in that professional coach stance needs to be able to bring to the table. But really, for me, something that's stood out since I've been looking at my own journey in this professional coaching path, and I'm working towards, I've now done one of the Coactive Coaching Foundation classes, I've done the ORSC Foundation classes, and I'm looking at moving towards the ICF certifications, which are competency-based certifications and require such things as not just meeting or talking about, but actually signing and committing to a code of ethics. Lisa Atkins, in a recent conversation, we were talking about ethics, and she phrased it like this: what is the up with which you will not put? What are the things, what are your personal lines? And how blurred are those lines? And this is a reflection point. And I'm going to pause at this point for just a minute. I'm going to ask you to stop where you are, maybe take a piece of paper, maybe just quietly, reflectively. What is the up with which you will not put? What is your personal line in the sand for this ethical behavior, thinking we're in the context of coaching and agile coaching? We'll come a bit more to the agile place in a little while. So just take a minute. So I would encourage you and ask you to carry on this reflection as we continue through this session, but also beyond the session. Being self-aware about your own boundaries is a really important starting point. And this is a sign, it's on the building, I think it's the Martin Luther King building in Atlanta. You are personally responsible for becoming more ethical than the society you grew up in. That's quite a challenge. And again, I cannot remember the source of that quote, but it's there on the wall. But it was made by somebody fairly famous, and I know it wasn't Martin Luther King. But really, as you're thinking about your own boundaries and this call to be more ethical than the society you grew up in. So there's this lovely fluffy stuff about ethics, but then it gets tighter and more uncomfortable. There are a number of bodies out there, professional bodies, two in particular that talk about coaching and ethics: the International Coach Federation, and there's the Global Code of Ethics. Both of those have, well, the Global Code of Ethics is just that. It is a body that publishes a code of ethics for coaching. And the ICF has their own code of ethics. The links are in the slides there. And they cover a number of topics. In the ICF, there's responsibility to clients, responsibility to practice and performance, responsibility to professionalism, and an overarching responsibility to society. And with the Global Code of Ethics, there's working with clients, that professional conduct, and the requirement for excellence in practice. So here are some pointers towards what a code of ethics could contain. And this is it's a wordy slide. I think it's worth reading out. So the challenge of working ethically means that members will inevitably encounter situations that require responses to unexpected issues. resolution of dilemmas and solutions to problems. This code of ethics is intended to assist those persons subject to the code by directing them to the variety of ethical factors that may need to be taken into consideration and helping to identify alternative ways of approaching ethical behavior. ICF professionals who accept the code of ethics strive to be ethical, even when doing so involves making difficult decisions or acting courageously. It goes on and talks about not just avoiding doing bad, but actively doing good in the work that you do when you are working as a professional coach under the guidance of the code of ethics. And the thing that a code of ethics gives us, it doesn't change your behavior, but a code of ethics gives you a milestone, a yardstick, something that you can hold up and look at and say, okay, here I'm facing a dilemma. I'm not sure what would be the appropriate response. What does this guidance tell me? And this is something that we certainly see is somewhat missing in some other domains. And a domain I'm going to particularly focus on is that of Agile coaching. So professional coaching, a set of competencies, a particular focus, and there is, for people who do go down that path, a defined code of ethical conduct. Agile coaching goes a little bit wider. Professional coaching is one of the competencies that an Agile coach is expected to bring. This model comes from Lisa Adkins and the Agile Coaching Institute, and she talks about there are these 8 different aspects of the role of the Agile coach. At the top of the framework, and this is sometimes called the X-wing diagram, at the top we have a lean Agile practitioner. If you're an Agile coach working in an organization, you are expected to live the Agile values, to truly understand deep in your psyche the intent behind the manifesto values and principles. So not just the words and not just the practices, but that deep values principles that underlie the philosophy, so that you can bring that to the work that you do with teams. Then there, around the edges, there's the professional coaching and facilitating, 2 different stances. Then at the other side of that, there is teaching and mentoring. So in the professional coaching world, we take the stance that people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and they have the answer within themselves. As an Agile coach, there will be times when I'm actually stepping out of that stance and saying, you know what, there is somebody here, there is a team here that does not currently have the skills, the competencies to do something. Well, my job can be to teach and to mentor. But what's really important is I'm showing that stance at the time. I'm being open and honest about the stance, and then the foundational mastery in at least one of the areas of some area of technical mastery, business mastery, transformation mastery, so that I bring, again, that set of competencies along to the teams that I am serving and supporting. So there, when we think about Agile coaching, and when we start to think about the competencies, the wide range of things, and add that to ethical behavior. So now it's time that I would like you to go into some breakout rooms, and we'll take 5 minutes in breakout rooms for this. I want you, and this is the first of those links, so Sophie, if you could push the first one out. How many people do we have? We've got 97 people in the room. let's go for 15 breakout rooms.
15 rooms? Okay. I've sent the Jamboard in the general chat, but I will resend it to all the rooms when the rooms are open. So you said 15 rooms? You'll have like 6-7 participants per room? That's good for you? Okay. Okay, guys, so I'm sending you to the room. The Jamboard link will be sent also to your rooms. I'll send it again when everyone is in the rooms.
This Jamboard is it's got nothing in it, but for each group, pick a page number. So if you're group number 1, use page number 1, group number 2, page number 2, and so forth. Move to that page, and please give us examples that you have seen, maybe using 2 different colored Post-its, examples of ethical behavior in the Agile coaching stance, and of examples of unethical behaviors that you have seen or experienced in that Agile coaching stance. So does this make sense? In your groups, 5 to 7 minutes altogether, examples of ethical behavior and examples of unethical behavior using different colored Post-it notes, and each group on a different Jamboard. There are up to 18 Jamboards. There are 15 groups. The number of the board is the number of the group. Thank you, folks. So, anyone want to bring up any highlights there? Anything that was of interest from your groups?
Unethical ways of coaching. So we had a long discussion about that, and we kind of found out that it is so much easier to point out the unethical behavior of Agile coaches. Yeah. So I can just tell you what we were discussing, because we didn't have much time to write it there, put the sticky on. So we were talking about that sometime when someone focuses on the solution rather than on the problem. Like, for example, if a coach goes to a new organization and without understanding what problem they are going through, they just kind of suggest to implement SAFe that would solve everything. So that's one of the things we were just talking about, like a tool or a framework or anything that the coach is familiar with that might not be the right solution. So instead of focusing on the solution, people should focus on the problem.
Thank you for that. We had some feedback here as well. Andrea in our breakout rooms mentioned about making sure not to break confidence, if that makes sense. So if you have a connection with someone, and it's a confidence, and it might even be within yourself sharing it with other people, just unconsciously, or it could even be someone you were working with, like a leader or something, asking, hey, what did you learn about Sean and Sean's team? What's good and what's bad about that? And then actually breaking that confidence.
Hey, hi, this is Saravanan. I just wanted to go. Me and Paul were discussing on the breakout session, and it was unethical coaching ways. We also came out with important points like during a project retrospectives. There were customers was reporting defects and issues on the applications that is developed, but the retrospective was heading in a way that the leads were pointing to person based and persona based, stating that it's a mistake of a resource who has done the coding. So I think the agile way of coaching learning last 3 days was giving a lot of insights on how to correct the agile methodologies and to follow right ways of doing agile execution rather than persona based. It should correct the process. We should correct the process, not point out on people. So don't identify anybody guilty of doing things. So those came out, and I think it was a good discussion. Thank you.
Two good points came out of ours from other people, not myself. So I hope they don't mind me sharing. But I thought they really impacted with me. One was weaponizing agile ceremonies for either personal or business agenda, and then similarly, a coach being using their influence to get someone to do something, as opposed to what a coach is meant to do and lead.
I love that term, weaponizing the agile ceremonies. I'm going to borrow that if I may.
It's Daniel's. It is very good.
Thank you, Daniel.
We had one that surprised me, but it was linked to another one, and that was the one that didn't surprise me as much was being secretive and running parallel agendas within the team. And what surprised me, and I don't know why, but having sex with one of your team members, so overstepping the coach team member boundary. And I had just not thought of that one.
That's a new team relationship.
It is, isn't it, Anthony?
Cool. Thank you, folks. I'm going to pause on that topic for now, but really appreciate the great sharing there. All right, so one of the things that is different about agile coaching from professional coaching is this deliberate bias. If we think of the framework here, we're a professional coach acting in that professional coaching stance does come from the perspective of the coachee has the answer themselves. The agile coach brings a deliberate conscious bias towards agility. We do believe that taking an agile approach is probably going to be a useful tool or technique in the context, and it's okay to have that deliberate and conscious bias as long as we are clear and open about it. So if I think of an agile coaching framework, an ethical framework for agile coaching, I would want us to deal with some of the topics there about responsibility to clients and practice and performance, professionalism and society, with that deliberate bias towards agility. And being open and honest that this is the case, that we're not taking the pure, unbiased, neutral stance. So a number of us, and you can see some details of this initiative, have been tackling this since early in the new year. It went into a bit of hiatus as the COVID lockdowns happened around the world and we all got involved with other things. But the last 2 months, we've been back slowly, steadily working in 2-week sprints on coming up with a framework for the contents of a coaching, an agile coaching code of conduct. One of the first conversations we had was, why can't we just align with one of the existing coaching organizations like the ICF or that global code of ethics? And we fairly rapidly came to the point that that deliberate bias towards agility actually is different, and we could not just align with that pure neutral stance. But then we need to think about, okay, what could or should it contain? And we're working through a number of iterations, and there's a lot of learning and a lot of feedback and a lot of changing. We this week released the first blog post where basically we put up, these are the topic areas that we believe. And we're going through a series of iterations where we're starting with the topic areas. We're then turning that into 1 or 2 sentences that will be the core code of ethics. And in behind that, and we're calling these the ethics stories for each of the subject areas, there's going to be a block of text that is, this is what we mean by. So our goal is to come up with something that is clear, succinct, easily readable, that any person taking an Agile coaching stance or in the role of an Agile coach can point to and say, okay, here is an ethical challenge that I'm facing. One of the first things that we've said is the coachee at free choice. So we're not going to impose that silver bullet solution. And when somebody wants us to impose the silver bullet solution, I now at least have something that I can point to and say, you know what, the code of ethics that I have committed to says I'm not going to do that. We may offer this to the teams, we may offer this to the organization, but I'm not going to collude in imposing that under the banner of an Agile coach. If I'm wearing the hat of a consultant, I might do that. But wearing the hat and taking the perspective of an Agile coach, no, I will not. And these are the topic areas that we have come up with as our starting point. That no imposition, coachee at free choice, confidentiality, caring for the mental health of our coachees, working with multiple relationships, the reflective practice, continuing professional development, including self-care and sustainability, social responsibility, which includes diversity and inclusion, coping with conflicts of interest, acting within our ability. This is one we see a lot of coaches who, yeah, I don't actually know anything about it, but I'll pretend. Or maybe the ethical thing is to say, you know what, I do not have any experience and background in this, but if you want me to, I am happy to learn this with the team, and I will be one step ahead of them. And that's okay, but we've all, I'm not going to say we've all, because that's a broad generalization, but certainly I have seen instances of coaches who've got absolutely no idea about a topic area, pretending that they do have. Agreeing on boundaries and acting within that coaching alliance or coaching agreement. The appropriate interpersonal relationships. And yeah, one of the things that we said is, as an Agile coach, don't have sex with somebody that you are coaching. Responsibility to the profession and respect for thought. Quote, making sure that if you are bringing ideas, you're not pretending if you haven't made it up that you made it up. You referencing sources appropriately and so forth. So these are the ideas that we, as a group of 21 people, have come up with so far, and that we're looking to make available to the community. But we know that we don't know it all. So this is where I'm kind of crowdsourcing some of the content here. We're taking advantage of the fact that we've got 83 people still on involved, and this is the second of, let me find, this is the second of the Jamboards that I would like you to work in. And Sophie, for this one, we need 13 breakout rooms, please.
All right, I was responding to you being muted, so that was not
because
working.
there are 13
breakout rooms.
13 pages. Yeah. So the very first frame is just this is the preamble that we've written so far. there was I asked you to do what we were going to ask you to do here, and Alex went in and, yeah, put Hippocrates in there and made statements about Shane, and I'm not going to remove them. And then starting from frame number 3, and I've put a number on there in the top left-hand corner. So this is the statement number 1, bullet point number 1, and then number 2, number 3. That will be the number of your breakout room. So if you're in breakout room 3, please come to this page, Caring for the Coachee's Mental Health First. And that's the statement we have made. I will refer clients to appropriate specialist care when needed and won't offer therapy under the guise of coaching. What I would ask you in your group to do for the first 5 minutes or so when you land in there, stay on that page and just think about, okay, what would this mean to you? What would you want to add to it? What anything that this brings to mind, any suggestions that you would like to make to flesh this out or to reword it, and just put them on there as post-it notes. And yeah, we'll take 5 minutes on that, and then after 5 minutes on one page, each group, I'm going to ask you to then move around, look through the whole board, all 13 of these Jamboard frames, and there's a 14th one, what topics are missing? And just go and add content to it, please. And we'll take a total of 15 minutes, so 5 minutes on the frame that you start with, and then 10 minutes exploring. And do this as a group. Please feel free to add anything that will be of value here. And also give it deep thought as you're doing so. All right, and 2 minutes debrief, folks. Anything that stood out from you in those conversations?
Oh, there's a fun one, Shane, that I was thinking. It says, there's one there saying when you get to the point where it's like you can no longer provide value, this is, I'm kind of paraphrasing, then you have this being upfront about it. But then I think about, well, what if I'm a full-time employee as an Agile coach and I realize my value is diminished? Do I go and resign at that point? I am being a bit facetious about that.
We've actually got some people on the team who are in that exact position. We tried when we called, and it was a voluntold rather than go to the world volunteer, but we were looking for people coming from the full-time employee, from the external coaching, from the big organizations, from the independents. We tried to get that diverse viewpoints very deliberately, and that was a genuine question that two people on the team have said, am I working myself out of a job? Or am I working myself out of the engagement with this team and moving to another team? But
yeah, and that's a really generative conversation to have with your organization. You hope they're ready for that.
Yeah. There is the cynical approach to consulting, of course. If you're not part of the solution, there's money to be made extending the problem. And that's what we hope we're going to avoid.
Shane, I think it's a very good collection of ideas about ethical coaching. I only miss one point, not a small point of a point, is the 5, the reflective practice and continuing professional development includes self-care and sustainability. For me, I don't check deeply on the other points, but I think in these points it belongs that it's not only self-care, but it's a permanent development of self-awareness. As a mirror for your coaches and your team, you can be a clear mirror only if you are aware of your personal biases. And as far as you develop your self-awareness, you can become clearer and more precise mirror, and therefore a better coach. So for every Scrum Master and every Agile coach, I really recommend to do not stop working on self-awareness.
Thank you, Nando.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Last call almost.
We had a nice discussion about the caring for coaches' mental health and to refer clients to a therapy where necessary. And the point where we discussed is, how do you recognize that something is out of your league? Like maybe some coaches might not realize that there is something that is bigger than their coaching, like where they understand it. And I think this goes into also what Nando said in like being aware of where your limits are. And I think this is very difficult.
And one of the things that we're hoping is that this is going to influence some of the coach training that's out there as well, to bring these topics into some of the learning. So just to wrap things up, thank you so much, folks. There is the link to the initiatives, and Sophie, I think those links are still in the chat window. There's the initiative itself, the landing page for that, and also we have the blog post that went out literally yesterday, I think it was, from the Agile Alliance. It's on the Agile Alliance blog, talking about this is it, and asking for feedback. So we've tapped into you very early on. So thank you so much. And with that, Sophie, back to you.